coming with me, you hear? Hell's coming with me!
That's what I'm hearing from a lot of college football fans out there. Hey, all I hear is a bunch of ass clowns losing their bowels, overreacting a little bit. Although I will say some of it may be warranted at this point. So let's differentiate. What is the ass clowns and what do people actually have to actually be pissed off about that's valid? Now, let's move on to being the outlaw of college football. Let y'all see my bald ass head one more time. You don't get to see that bald ass head very much, do you? Go from ass clown to cowboy. Just like that. Transformation. Ain't that great? Ain't I great? Well, I'm just all over the place, right? A man of multifaceted talents, man. Y'all need to tell somebody about me. Y'all need to push me out to maybe Fox Sports or I don't know if I could work for ESPN or not, but I don't know, man. Maybe I should join Rumble. Then I wouldn't be as censored. What do y'all think? How'd y'all like my clown costume? I thought that was pretty cool, huh? But we're going to come in here today because even though Alabama did have a nice little win yesterday, it to me is a tad bit misleading. We did beat Missouri 34-0, which is all you can really ask for. Missouri was ranked. They're 6-1, but now they're 6-2. They're probably not going to be ranked. I think they are, though. I think they dropped down to 25th in this latest poll, but they should have dropped out because it's not the Missouri team from earlier in the year. I don't think they've had a lot of injuries. Their quarterback went out, I think, in the second quarter against Alabama. Alabama has a tendency to play teams or knock their quarterback out or play them when their quarterback is not in the game for whatever reason. The quarterback gets injured before the game or the quarterback gets injured during the game. And a lot of people, I think, are especially the Jalen Milroe cock riders out there and who I called the Cancer Five a few days back or about a week ago. People are now saying, see, I told you they weren't that bad, blah, 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 blah. Well, I'm just saying. I've talked to a few people about this game, and they say it's vastly misleading. While we did win 34-0, my boy Jonathan Lewis pointed out that Jalen Milroe still has an issue with staying in a clean pocket. We had an article that was out with A.J. McCarron, a former Alabama quarterback that won 2 national championships here, so his opinion can be considered pretty valid, said that Jalen Milroe was a read one quarterback only and that he needed to stay in his lane and stop trying to prove himself as a pocket passer. I know that's what he's thinking will help him get in the NFL, but he just needs to stay true to himself. And I think that's the problem with Jalen Milroe is he don't stay true to himself. He tries to push it and prove that he's a pocket passer when he's not. Sometimes you're just not that person. You're just not. I would like to be a fabulous three-point shooting guard like Steph Curry, but I'm not. There's just some things that you're never going to be. And Jalen Milroe will never be a true pocket passer, in my opinion, as well as many others. And I hope Alabama fans don't take too much glee in the 34-0 victory over Missouri because, like I said, it's vastly, vastly misleading. We're also going to talk about the fact that a lot of people are sort of surprised me. I saw this article today. It caught me off guard a little bit. I knew that they had fired Seth Luttrell, and I thought everybody at Oklahoma was going to be satisfied with Seth Luttrell's head, but it seems like now after losing to Ole Miss, now they want to go to the very top and take out Brent Venables as well. What do you Oklahoma fans out there think about that? Drop in the comments on here. Who would y'all get? Who would y'all go after? I suspect maybe Josh Heupel would be one of y'all's first calls, maybe. Maybe even Shane Beamer at South Carolina, who I think had a little point to prove too. In Norman, he had a little axe to grind. I think he felt a little slighted. I think he was one of the candidates in the job coaching search last time Brent Venables got the job. I think Shane Beamer was one of the guys they had talked about possibly interviewing. They may have interviewed him. I'm not sure. Y'all can tell me. But I think Shane Beamer was one of the candidates on Oklahoma's list last time, and maybe he felt a little slighted. Also, we got college football playoff projections. Some of them surprised me. CBS usually will just go with whatever the AP top 25 poll is and just use that. But they actually stepped outside the box a little bit on this one. I'll bring that up for you guys and gals in just a little bit, and we'll discuss what y'all think about these early college football playoff projections coming up in the show. But before we get to all that, I'm going to go ahead and give the random 4 horsemen shout-outs. They go to Rail, Zach Hamner, Marshall Jenkins, and Mad Dog Mike are saddled up today, and they're ready to go, and they're going to help us with today's college football invasion. Also, I got a comment of the day that I want to bring up for y'all as well. Let me go ahead and share that with y'all. Comment of the day comes from Paul Matthews. He says, I've been a die-hard Bama fan for 62 years, but this bunch is running me off. I would rather pull for a team like Indiana or even Vandy for obvious reasons. And I said, obviously for real. And the obvious reasons to me are the fact that you got a bunch of guys that act like, sort of got that Deion Sanders-ish type attitude about things, man. It's all about the bling bling, all about the money, all about the NIL. It's all about what my commercial is going to be. It's all about what I get. What about me? When, it's unrealistic the way y'all look at this whole pay-for-play stuff, the players, that is. And it's just ruining the game, man. They're going to have contracts. We've discussed this 1,000 times before, but the main thing that was the big thing in all this that this guy was probably referring to more so than the NIL was the fact that the Cancer 5 or the Cancer 7, or however many of them there are, have basically made it known that if Jalen Milroe were to be benched, that they may, in fact, lay down on Alabama. And that's just a catch-22 there. If you bench them and you start losing, people are going to get pissed. If you don't bench them and they're barely getting by or they're losing games, people are going to get pissed off at you for playing them. So you're damned if you do and you're damned if you don't if you're Kalen DeBoer at this point, right? So it's easy for people to just come in here and say, hey, you just need to bench them all. You need to fire them all. You need to blah, 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 blah. Yeah, it's easier said than done. If you got a massive number of players, if it's more than 7 players, that could directly affect your win-loss record. And, yeah, I know that you've got to do it sometimes, but there's also a little gray area in there where sometimes you just have to let live until the end of the season until you can get these guys out of your program. Saban sort of did that his first year at Alabama. He had a few players that were not very open-minded to his process, and he benched them a little bit. Like DJ Hall, he benched him. He was supposed to bench him the whole game. He ended up bringing him back in the second half. Didn't help because we ended up losing to Northeast Louisiana, who's now Louisiana Monroe. But it's just a catch-22, man. It's a bad situation to be in. The only thing that's going to solve it is time for Kalen DeBoer to get his process in, for him to get his players that believe in what he's preaching in the system. These guys have been out here for 3 or 4 years under Saban, so of course they're going to buck a little bit, right? Hit that thumbs up button, says Charles Van. Appreciate that, Charles. If y'all don't mind, jump out, smash the like button. The thumbs up button, as Charles Van said. And it'll get more people in this party, and we'll get this thing crunk up, and everybody can get their opinions in. By the way, if y'all want me to read out a comment of yours, there's a lot of comments coming in here already. I can't see them all. There's a little money dollar sign at the bottom. You can click on that, write your comment out first, then hit send so you get your money's worth. Your comment will be pushed to the top and highlighted, and I will read your comment and answer your question above everybody else's. Bagman says, what did you miss? Well, not much. I mean, I ain't been going for about 5 or 10 minutes, so not really much, So I'm going to go ahead and bring up some stuff here. This one has nothing really to do. Well, actually, I'll bring that up later. We'll bring out the Nick Saban thing real quick for y'all. I got some Oklahoma stuff coming as well. And even a Mike Elko comment taking a jab at Jimbo Fisher. You know how Jimbo Fisher is. You take a jab at Jimbo Fisher, he'll be threatening to slap you like he did Nick Saban, because Jimbo can't take criticism. But I thought it was funny what Mike Elko said about Jimbo Fisher, because it describes him very accurately. Well, I'll show you all that in a little bit. Here it is. All right. Nick Saban calls out Kalen DeBoer's Crimson Tide players for not upholding the Bama standard on College game day. Says Nick Saban got on Kalen DeBoer's players about not upholding the Bama standard. Saban believes players need to prioritize the Bama standard over winning, even knowing firsthand how one leads to the other. Kalen did something this week that I thought was interesting. It's to call the TNT, takes no talent. You know, all those things have been going wrong really are not talent-oriented. They're mental errors. They're snap counts and all different things, what Saban said. Number one thing is Alabama has got to do is not worry about winning, which is very asinine and very naive for Nick Saban to say. Now, I love Nick Saban. I love what he's done for Alabama, but, man, that's naive to say that they don't need to worry about winning. I mean, that's one of them roll-your-eye moments. Like I said, Nick Saban has done some great things at Alabama, but some of the stuff he says sometimes just makes your eyes roll. They have to worry about getting back to play for the standard. There's so much pressure at Alabama to win every game. I think if they play to a standard and the talent they have, they'll be able to come out on top. Sometimes that affects the players. They get anxious. They're worried about the outcome instead of focusing on what's in front of them. Playing one time, play at a time. Nick Saban has mixed messages on what Kalen DeBoer should do. Said he previously tried to emulate college football's GOAT way of doing business at 17-year run in Tuscaloosa, which is not the way to do it. I do think it's a tough transition, he says. Anytime you take over a successful program, I don't want to be judgmental in what they do, because I feel like he has to do what he does his way. He can't be me. He can't try to be somebody that he isn't. I think there's more than one way to skin a cat. Actually, like the guy, he's been successful, and I think it will work. I think it's an adjustment. Blah, 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 blah. So, basically, Nick Saban said they need to play to the Bama standard, but then he says that they don't need to try to play to what, he created the whole Bama standard thing, really. So, it's hard to sit here and tell players to play the Bama standard and not worry about winning. I just don't quite get that. And, Nick Saban can come in and say all the right things. And as I said, he had an article a while back that was sort of vague, that didn't really seem like he said he don't want to be judgmental. He don't want to give his opinion, but then he gives his opinion. So I don't know, man. He just, like that guy said, he's giving mixed signals. But Nick Saban, a lot of the stuff that was going on, or is going on now, was already going on in the last 2 or 3 years he was here. It just didn't show up as much in the loss column. We had a few games last year where we got lucky and got by, like the Auburn Hail Mary and that kind of deal. Everybody talks about how bad the team is and discipline and all that stuff, but we was one of the most penalized teams in America the last couple of years under Saban. So it's just like my last podcast, man. We just need to stop trying to compare him to Nick Saban. We said we weren't going to do this, and then now we're doing it. So I don't know, man. Y'all tell me what y'all think about that. Got a lot of people up in here. The NIL committee says, how would Alabama do if Michael Penix Jr. was the quarterback? I don't know. I mean, Michael Penix Jr. could run the ball when he had to. He wasn't a very slow quarterback, but he was more of a pocket passer, staying in the pocket, clean pocket kind of deal, like my boy Jonathan Lewis pointed out to me earlier. But I think that if Michael Penix were at Alabama, honestly, yeah, I think that it would be a lot easier transition for Kalen DeBoer. Now, he did bring Austin Mack from Washington with him, who actually fits DeBoer's system. It's been year 3, and so far he still doesn't know how to manage a game. Was reactive with the NFL, completely overlooked the other side of the ball, and 1-9 against ranked opponents. I assume you're talking about who? Brent Venables, or who are you talking about? Steve Lees is in the house. Steve Lees says Shane Beamer was never a candidate for Oklahoma head coaching job. Laughing your ass off. Why is that so funny, man? If you're really seriously laughing my ass off at something this just an average conversation, man, you might want to invest in seeing a psychiatrist if you're really laughing that hard. This year's issues at Oklahoma are the result of players that left who were expected to stay, compounded injuries, and the offense coordinator. Oh yeah, well, I can go with that. I can agree with that to some degree, and the fact that y'all have had 5 wide receivers injured as well. But you know how the old saying goes, Steve, injuries are a part of the game. So they're just going to have to live with it, man. Alabama had an issue with that a few years back where we had all our wide receivers injured going into the national title game against Georgia. We'd beaten Georgia just a month before, went into that game with a bunch of injuries, and the one good wide receiver we had, Jamison Williams, got injured in the Georgia game in like the first or second quarter. So I can sympathize with what y'all are going through. It's just y'all having to go through a whole season like that. Well, he is right. Wayne takes care of itself when all those little things are prioritized. Yeah, I believe that too, Tactical Matt Foley. But to say that it doesn't matter is just disingenuous, man. It absolutely matters. That's why coaches get fired all the time, because it does matter. He came from Dabo and Snyder. I'm not surprised at all. See who else we got in here. We got Daniel Looney in the house. Nice. He fired an alumni that was on the last national title team mid-season. Talking about Brent Venables. Speaking of which, here's the article if y'all want to see it. First, I'm going to bring up. Let me get it up here for y'all. Y'all see that? There's a lot of things being said about Brent Venables here. As you can see, it says, Fed Up fan base calls for Oklahoma to fire Brent Venables after another SEC loss. Got people on Twitter and X going off. This guy named Ronnie Crimson, we didn't live up to the standard today, said Brent Venables in his press conference. Yeah, you haven't lived up to the standard at all in any of your 3 years as head coach. We literally are the laughing stock of the SEC, says Ronnie Crimson. Venables has a significant buyout if he were to be fired, but many Oklahoma fans are done with him either way and are searching for ways to pay for it. In his first season at OU, Venables was 6-7 before a 10-3 record in 2023, but now he's staring down his second losing season in just 3 years. Oklahoma's last losing season before 2022 was 1998, and the last coach to have 2 losing seasons across a 3-year stretch in Norman was John Blake, who we've heard about ad nauseum. Here's another tweet from another pissed off fan. Christian C.J. Stevens says, Brent Venables is literally the worst thing that ever happened to the University of Oklahoma. John Blake and Jerry Gibbs inherited programs coming off NCAA probation. Brent Venables inherited a 10-win football team. That is true. I can't really argue with that. Now, that did happen. John Blake and Gary Gibbs did inherit a program that was ravaged by the NCAA sanctions, and Venables did not. But what this guy doesn't take into account is it was almost like the Oklahoma was being ravaged by the NCAA, because back then they didn't have NIL and transfer portal where players could just up and leave in the middle of the season. And having the former coach lure players into the portal like old Linky Boy did, old TBOW, the bitch out west, lured them to the portal, then said, well, I'm not going after Oklahoma players. I'm just going after transfer portal players. Which we all know they were, every single one of them were Oklahoma players just about, outside the Pittsburgh wide receiver. So that's sort of a little bit misleading there. What's his name? Christian Stevens. A little misleading there, brother. Venables could be entering Blake territory amongst the Oklahoma fan base, which is not a good place to be. Well, no shit. Let's just state the obvious. This is coming from Storman and Norman, by the way. This is an Oklahoma site. And this I actually sort of agree with. Venables benching Arnold was a gross overreaction. So many dumb Oklahoma fans thought it was going to fix their team too. Yeah, I thought that maybe, he could have stuck it out with Arnold in that Tennessee game just a little bit longer, at least try to get him to halftime and give him a series in the third quarter or two and see how things pan out. And things might have been different for Oklahoma if they had just gotten to halftime with Jackson Arnold instead of yanking him in the second quarter for the other guy that yanked him for, Michael Hawkins. Mr. McIntosh says, burning a timeout in the fourth quarter just to punt is a perfect example of why Venables is not capable of this job. I didn't see that. I didn't watch y'all's game the other day, but I watched some of it, but not all of it. But yeah, that is a little puzzling if he did in fact do that just to punt. It's not just on social media where Venables is taking heat. The Sooner fans who made the trip to Oxford on Saturday let their head coach hear it any chance they had. TJ Eckert says, a loud Oklahoma contingent letting the Sooners hear it, heading to the locker room. OU leads Ole Miss 14-10 thanks to Jacob Jordan. Blah, 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 blah. While the offense struggling, Venables fired offensive coordinator Jack. What did they say? I can't even get his name right. His name's Seth Luttrell, not Jackson Luttrell, you jackasses. It's supposed to be a Homer site, man. They getting names wrong and shit. Heading to this matchup with Ole Miss, though, it didn't get much better. After throwing his offensive coordinator under the bus, Venables could be next, and most of the fan base would love to see that. So what do y'all think about that shit so far? Good evening, Outlaw. I say cut BV some slack. There's going to be a learning curve transferring to a new conference, says Appalachia Africa Twin, who's one of the big donors to our program. By the way, appreciate Appalachia Africa Twin for all he does for the Outlaw Posse. Yeah, we've been talking about that Africa Twin, but we also talked about earlier about how the Alabama fans are all giddy about winning 30-40 over Missouri, which is really misleading because half of Missouri's team was out injured. Jalen Milroe still showing that he is not a clean pocket quarterback. He didn't show me anything in that game because it was only 6-0 with about a few minutes left to go in the second half, and we got lucky on the interception return that put us in, deep in Missouri territory and got us up 13-0. I think that was a turning point in the game for us. But for a whole half, Jalen Milroe didn't look like he had done anything special to rectify any problems. He's not a clean pocket quarterback. He's going to have to stop trying to be a clean pocket quarterback. Just like A.J. McCarron said. Don't try to be something you're not, man. I don't get it. Lance Hunter's in the house. Not an OU football follower, but why did OU feel the need to extend Venables? He was in jeopardy of going nowhere. That's a good point, Lance. You have to ask the Oklahoma contingent in here. Got a $5 donation to the program. Appalachia Africa Twin says, let me make OU fans feel better. At least your coach isn't Neil Brown. Yeah. Speaking of which, the coaching carousel keeps going round and round with that too. Let's go back to the article real quick and finish that up for you guys. See what we got here. All right, one more. OU Warzy says if Venables has the same year he did this year, next year, that will be the last for him. If you don't produce wins at Oklahoma, you don't stay. Here's to our only win for the rest of the season of the year being Maine. Sick. Disappointing is enough to describe this debacle. So that's what the Oklahoma fan base is saying online. We also got an article right here that I'm not going to bring that up. I'll just ask y'all. There's an article that I was going to bring up but I'm not going to bring it up. But it's basically saying that Cale Gundy may, in fact, be an offensive coordinator candidate. Now, that's exactly what people getting aggravated with Brent Venables about. He's so herky-jerky about stuff. He makes a decision about something, and then he can't really stand behind it. He sort of forced him and the Oklahoma administration sort of forced Cale Gundy to resign. People tried to deny it, but he was forced to resign because he said he repeated the N-word in some lyrics from a song. But anyway, yeah. But they're talking about bringing Cale Gundy back. Now, moving on from that, y'all tell me what y'all think about maybe Cale Gundy coming back to Oklahoma, if that'd be a good idea or not. I think at this point, it would just look indecisive to me. But the coaching carousel does keep going round and round as we get further into this season. Is Central Florida is now talking about getting rid of Gus Malzahn after he sort of, I thought he was doing pretty decent until the middle part of this year. He started, now he sort of shit the bed, but, they're talking about getting rid of him. West Virginia is now once again, and this happened a couple of years ago, and then Neil Brown sort of righted the ship a little bit. I think he went, 9-3 or 9-4 last year, or something like that. I think he went 9-4. Was his record 9-4 in Appalachia? Now they're talking about getting rid of Neil Brown. How do you feel about that, Appalachia? You think they should get rid of Neil Brown? Now, the problem I had with some of the West Virginia fans, and I talked to this about to Kuz, your West Virginia podcaster there. I was concerned that, and this was back when in the season where West Virginia was still somewhat early in the season. I think y'all were 3-2 or 3-3. Y'all still in contention for a bowl, and it's a home game, and there's a lot of empty seats at West Virginia. I didn't understand it. I thought y'all were a massively passionate fan base, and it just surprised me, honestly. And Kuz's response was, well, that's the fans trying to tell the administration that they're fed up with the status quo, that being Neil Brown. My rebuttal to that is, I can understand somewhat, but you're going to bail on your team because of the coach, the university that you've been supporting all your life, or supposedly. You may be a bandwagon fan, I don't know. But you've been supposedly supporting West Virginia University all these years, and you're just not going to show up to the games. You're not going to support the team because of a head coach. It sounds like you're bailing on your team, man. Killer Breeze in the house. Haha, appreciate Appalachia. I'm just too depressed to laugh. Well, I'll laugh for you. How about that? Lance Hunter says, just my opinion, Stoops is holding OU back. Too involved. I've said that before, and some of the people get mad at me when I say that. It's like Bob Stoops still wants to be the head coach, but he don't want to be the head coach. He don't want to have to deal with the NIL and the transfer portal crap, in my opinion, Lance. But at the same time, he wants to have his hands in it and get not really the recognition, but maybe get a little bit of attention. People say he don't have the itch to coach anymore because of his health, but he's absolutely coaching. He coaches in the UFL, the United States Football League, man. And people say, well, that's not as much pressure, but it is pressure. Coaching an organized semi-pro football team is absolutely pressure. You just don't have to deal with the transfer portal NIL. I think if that wasn't around, that Bob Stoops would, without a shadow of a doubt, man, he would jump at the opportunity to come back and to coach Oklahoma again, in my opinion. I think that's what's holding him back, Lance. OU fans are spoiled. I thought the standard at Oklahoma was more than barely bowl eligible, says Bagman. Here's the thing that really puzzled me the other day. I heard this the other day from a few Oklahoma people. I think actually Jonathan Lewis pointed it out to me too. They were talking about how it was a great game progress was made, that they were proud that Oklahoma was able to keep it close. And I'm like, since when is Oklahoma, who's supposedly a blue blood, Oklahoma is a blue blood, right? Since when is a blue blood satisfied with keeping the game moderately close? By the way, it was double-digit loss to Ole Miss. Wasn't like y'all lost by 3 like Vanderbilt did to Texas. That's an acceptable moral loss for Vanderbilt. But Oklahoma's not Vanderbilt, man. Y'all can't. Oklahoma shouldn't be satisfied with losing by 12 to anybody, anywhere, anytime, because y'all supposed to be a blue blood, man. And yeah, of course, you're going to get beat by 12 points. You're going to get beat by 30 points. You might even get beat by 45 points sometimes. But you don't accept it. Even as a blue blood, you shouldn't even accept losing by 1 point. Just saying. Blue bloods do not accept any kind of losses. Marshall Jenkins says, thanks for the shout out, Outlaw. They're still my sinners. Yeah, you were one of the 4 horsemen shout outs today. You were mounted up and you saddled up and you was ready to go, brother. We got you in the random 4 horsemen shout outs today. And you're welcome. Johnny Fairlane with a $4.99 donation says, I love Kel Gundy, but I agree with the Outlaw. That would be a bad look. Yeah, I wish they had never fired Kel Gundy for that trivial shit. And I know a lot of people that, are minorities and whatnot may not think it's trivial, but to me, he wasn't directly saying that to anyone. From what I understand, he was just repeating the lyrics of a song that a minority was singing. So it's okay for someone else to say it in a song. Why can't Kel Gundy say it? Just because he's white? Sounds like he's being discriminated against because of his skin color. It actually, ironically, sounds like the racism was directed at Kel Gundy. Just saying. Probably going to get me in trouble. But yeah. See what else we got here. Lance Hunter says, to be fair, Stoops has as many championships as Les Miles and Mac Brown. Yeah, that is fair. But do you really want to be lumped in with Les Miles and Mac Brown at this point? Maybe back in the early 2010s, that would have been a great group to be grouped up in. But Les Miles he seriously went downhill quick. He not only lost Alabama 8 years in a row after his little national championship, but he's also got implicated in sexual abuse of some sort, some kind of sexual stuff involving co-eds and whatnot, him and Ed Orgeron. Les Miles eating that grass, man. That shit was cute, man. It kills me how the media latch on to somebody and I think it's all cute and stuff, that stuff they're doing. Sort of like con time Deion Sanders. They're all up his ass again now that he's bowl eligible. But he's got a lot weaker schedule to play this year. So it's a little misleading for old con time Deion Sanders. But they'll think that shit's cute. And then when he starts losing, it ain't so cute anymore. It's sort of weird and sort of psychotic out there eating grass that people done stepped all over with their shoes. Just like Jalen Milroe, everybody thought his little cringy ass roll tide was cute until he starts losing games. Now they don't think it's cute anymore. They want him benched again. Roll Tide. Shit's cringy, man. I said it was cringy from day one, even when he was winning. Marshall Jenkins says, no acceptance here, Outlaw. Gundy should still be here. He simply read what a player wrote. Boomer. Exactly. If one person can't say it, the other person shouldn't be able to say it either. You're right, Marshall. By the way, Marshall Jenkins, As I said earlier, he was in the random four horseman shout. He's got his badge. He's deputized. If you want to be in the outlaw posse and get a random four horseman shout as well as possibly be the comment of the day, like Paul Matthews was, it's just $2.99 a month, 75 cents a week. It'd be a little join button and subscribe button. This live stream will go to podcast after we get off here, and you can join the Outlaw Posse if you want to, or you can join the Outlaw Posse now. Fred Bagley's in the house. Fred Bagley says, I've said from the start, 2025 and after is what we need to look to. So let me ask you this, Fred. Are you okay with Brent Venables losing out except for Maine? If Brent Venables goes 5-7 this year, do you think Brent Venables should get one more year of Fred Bagley? NIL Commish is in the house. He says, Bob saved us when Linky effed us up. He's loyal to the program. That's why he gets the keys to the program any day, anytime. I don't know if I agree with that, man. Me and you agree on a lot of stuff, but I don't agree that Bob should just be able to come in and indiscriminately take over whenever he wants to. I know that he helped y'all out during the bowl game, but you could have easily gotten another assistant to be the interim coach for that one game. Yes, that was noble of Bob in a way, but in a way it also, for some outsiders looking in, just playing devil's advocate, I'm not actually of this opinion, really. I'm sort of indifferent to the whole thing, but a lot of people thought maybe Bob done it to come in, sort of make yourself look like a hero and to pat himself on the back a little bit, like that right there. Hey, Steve Lee, is that all you ever do is just start shit? Yeah. Steve complains a lot, man. I think he's going through the male menopausal stages. His sphincter's probably tightened up a little bit because his boyfriend ain't been over in a while to ream his shit out or something. I don't know, man. I don't know what Steve Lee's problem is. He's supposed to be an investigator. He's supposed to be on the case right now, but he's in here messing with us. He said that I asked Steve to be on the show, and he said that he just don't have time for that, and he's making too much money to be on this show with us, NIL Commish. But yet he's taking the time to come in here and type shit out. It takes longer to type out a comment than to just come on here and say it. Just come on here and say it like a man. Say it like you mean it, Steve. Come on in here, brother. We'll debate it. Roy Miller says, no matter who's the coach or how bad we play, I'll still root for my Oklahoma Sooners and always will. All right. All right. Got another donation to the program. Johnny Fairlane says, Gundy should have never been fired, but you can't hire him back now. I agree. I completely agree. If y'all don't mind, jump out, smash the like button. Share me out to everybody. You smash that like button, pushes the algorithm. We get more people up here in this party. Now let's look at what Mike Elko said about Jimbo Fisher. I thought this was pretty funny. I won't spend a lot of time on this because I don't like Texas A&M or Texas really or Jimbo Fisher. Mike Elko takes a possible jab at Jimbo Fisher following a win. Let's scroll down here and find it. From where we were, we got here, the whole rhetoric about this program was NIL, mercenaries, and selfishness. All those things, Elko said. To see where we're at now, that's a credit to the kids in this locker room. It's a credit to the characters, a credit to who they are. Whatever demons were seemingly in College Station when Fisher was there, Elko has exercised them. Texas A&M is the last remaining undefeated team in the SEC and have a direct path to Atlanta for the first time in A&M football history. Trying to find it where he said that. Oh, here it is. Says here it is. Here it is right here. Mike Elko sort of taking a jab at Jimbo Fisher, referring to Fisher last night after the game when he said, I'm not a politician. I'm not a bullshitter. I just coach football. I know that's a cliche. You can get anywhere you want, but that's what they wanted out there because they want serious people. They want people that know how to do it, not who will tell them how it's going to be done. He went on to say that he went on to say in that article, couldn't really find it, but Mike Elko went on to say that I'm not in here talking extra fast and trying to run things like a politician and trying to make people talk over people and not exactly listen to my staff and running this thing like a political scene. When he referenced him talking fast, I was like, man, that's the first thing I see when I see Jimbo Fisher, that son of a bitch. And he's just like, whoa, man, it's like NASCAR. He's got NASCAR mouth, man, and you can't really understand what he's saying sometimes. And that's the way politicians are, man. They talk really fast because they know their line, and they want to get out of there fast before someone calls them out on their damn half-truths and their lies. Cameron Turner says, nice mustache, outlaw, random history question. Who is your favorite outlaw from the Wild West, says Cameron Turner. Well, I guess the obvious would be the Wild Earp Ability Kid, right? I'm a big Tombstone fan. So Tombstone was the best portrayal of those two, in my opinion. Now, there's another one that's called Wyatt Earp with Kevin Costner in it. But that damn thing is so long, man. It's like almost 3 hours long. And it just, I think that Kurt Russell is Wyatt Earp and Val Kilmer is Doc Holliday is probably the best outlaw portrayal of all time. What do y'all think? Marshall Jenkins says people need to get off Stoops. He's a great man and was a great coach. They're reaching. I'm ashamed of the fickle, fair weather fans among us. It's true. There is a fickle amount of fans out there. Although I might disagree with you on Stoops a little bit because I think maybe he does need to scale back his involvement a little bit. Got another donation to the program, Marshall Jenkins. I didn't get a comment with that, but whatever comments you want to say next, I'll make sure I read it out so you get your $5 worth, brother. I appreciate the donation to the program. If y'all want to get your comment read out, there's a little money dollar sign at the bottom. It'll push your comment to the top, and I'll read it out above everybody else's. Like Daniel Looney with a big $10 donation to the program. The longer your comment is, the more that you have to pay for it, by the way. Because they have $2, $5, $10, and on up. People need to unwad their panties. Bad hire alumnus, find the right guy. Cannot fix a wasted 6 months in 1 week. The next hire will determine if BV is a bust or not. I assume you're talking about the offensive coordinator. What does the offensive coordinator position look like for everybody? I'm hearing Kale Gundy, which I don't know if that's a good idea or not. At this point, it's just going to stir up more controversy that you don't need at this point. You already stirred the controversy up. You can't put the genie back in the bottle, as they like to say, right? NIL Commission says, I can't wait for the Outlaw College Football stream so I can have something to do. By the way, if y'all ever want to be on here with me live, I'll make sure I try to get you on here. I like to come on here and ramble a little bit myself for the first 30 to 45 minutes. It's almost at the 45-minute mark. So if anybody wants to come up in here and talk live, like Steve Lee's, who maybe he won't be scared all the time. Maybe he'll come in here one day. Maybe he can, take it amongst, in his heart of hearts to grace us with his investigative presence. Come on, Steve. Come on, Stevie boy. Fred Bagley agrees with me. Outlaw is the best. Tombstone is the best outlaw movie. Senator Ross is in agreement with this. Well, Tombstone is legit. Val Kilmer should have won an Oscar. Ka-ching. Damn right he should have. All right, now let's I just want to go back real quick for a minute because I know we got some other fan bases in here. When I was talking about Alabama, a lot of people was like, why are you bitching beat Missouri 34-0? Is it just me, or is that one of the most unimpressive 34-0 wins ever. Just saying, I mean, Missouri had half the team injured. Can y'all not understand my concern here going into LSU? Now, LSU got issues too. LSU should have lost to South Carolina, by the way. LSU probably should have lost a lot of different games this year, and they've gotten lucky. Well, they didn't get lucky in A&M finally, but this game is in Baton Rouge. I think this is going to be the telltale game for Jalen Milroe. I hate that we're going to have to wait until we lose to LSU for it to be proven, but if Jalen Milroe can pull this game out, then a lot of the people who have been needling, like myself, will probably back off a little bit. But he's just going to have to be within himself to win that game. I'm not saying be a running quarterback all the time. I'm just saying be more of a read one, read two quarterback, and don't try to sit back there in the pocket where you're not comfortable. If it's not you, it's not you, man. Just do you. Do what you can do, man. Do what's going to make you a successful quarterback in the future. Because I think, there's some guys that sort of built and do things like Jalen Milroe in the NFL. But more likely he is going to have to develop some kind of pocket presence eventually, or he will never be a complete starter in the NFL, in my opinion. Who's afraid of opinions? Somebody afraid of your opinion, Lance? Tell me who it is. Tell me who's picking on you, Lance. Mizzou has been a fraud all year. I agree, Lance. I agree. I'm not getting excited over a 34-0 win over a half Missouri team. Killer Breeze with a big $4.99 donation as well. Steve Lees can show everyone his badge when he comes on mains on the show because he is a cop. He ain't no cop. He's an investigator, man. He's Matlock or Dog the Bounty Hunter. He may be like a cross between Dog the Bounty Hunter and Matlock, man. Something like that. I think that's what he is. I think he's like a bondsman or some shit. Appreciate the donation, Killer Breeze. Daniel Looney says there's no doubt that the OUD is way better than before. I'm not sure about that, man. And they do look a little better. I'll give you that. But as far as leaps and bounds better, I'm not sure about that. Now, they are a lot better than the Tebow regime. That you're right about. But as far as progressing from last year to this year under Brent Venables, comparing last year's defense to this year's defense, I don't know. To me, they seem about the same. But, yeah, as far as comparing them to any defense out here under Tebow, you're probably right about that. Bagman says he thought Malachi Moore was in charge of Alabama. Well, I think he is, man. I mean, the Cancer 5 had gotten their way another week. Jalen Milroe is still the starter. And now they're going to be propping him up and ballyhooing him as this great comeback kid because he beat a half Missouri team 34-0. Seems like Malachi Moore is the new big dog, not DeBoer. All right, I'm going to bring up the bowl projections for y'all. If anybody wants to be on the show later, just let me know. I can't look at my phone or nothing, so if y'all send me a text on the phone, I'm not going to see it. You'll have to tell me in the comment section. Here we go. All right. Now, this is some surprising stuff out here. This is probably going to piss a few people off, to be honest with you, especially the Alabama haters out there. Here is the bowl projections from CBS Sports as of today. They have number one is Georgia being the number one seed. Ohio Stank is the number 2 seed. I assume they're saying that Ohio Stank's going to come back and beat Oregon in the Big Ten title game in a rematch, which I can buy that. I mean, they probably shouldn't have lost that game to Oregon, to be quite honest with you. Then they have Miami of Florida, number 3, is the 3rd seed because the top 4 seeds have to be conference champions, which I think is dumb. It should be the top 4 teams, not the 4 conference champions, in my opinion. Miami is the ACC champion right now, in their opinion, and they will be the 3rd seed. They will get the Peach Bowl. Georgia will get Sugar, Rose, Peach, Fiesta. Iowa State right now is the Big 12, looking like they're going to be the Big 12 representative over BYU, according to them. I don't know if I agree with that either. I'm thinking maybe BYU will beat Iowa State. Then the rest of the playoff picture looks like this. Number 5, Oregon will play Boise State in the first round. That game will be at Autzen Stadium because, as you know, the first round of the playoffs, the 5 through 8 seeds, I think, get home field advantage. The 8 seed, Penn State versus Texas A&M. That means Texas A&M will have to go to Happy Valley. 6 seed would be Texas versus Clemson. So Clemson would have to go to Austin. And then Alabama going to BYU. They actually got the Big 12 getting 2 teams in. The big team missing from all this, in my opinion, is Tennessee. They don't have Tennessee making the playoff, even though Tennessee beat Alabama. That's going to rankle a few feathers in Knoxville. But what I think they're saying is that Tennessee is going to lose a few more games. Tennessee does have to play Georgia. I'm not sure what the rest of their schedule looks like, but if Tennessee were to lose 2 more games, and they do have to play Vanderbilt and Nashville, and everybody thinks that's funny. It's not so funny anymore now. They beat Virginia Tech. Well, Virginia Tech may be a middling team this year. Then they beat Alabama, who was number 1, and then they almost beat Texas yesterday without a costly turnover late. Vanderbilt wins that game against Texas. So that shit's not funny anymore, is it? Tennessee's going to find that shit out too. So I guess they're saying that Tennessee's going to lose 3 games total and that they won't get in over Alabama because they'll have more losses. Because down here, as you can see, the bowl matchups, we're not going to go across them. We're going down here to some more interesting matchups. They got the Gator Bowl is going to be SMU versus Tennessee. Let me jump back in the chat real quick and make sure that nobody has sent any more donations. NIL committee says the defense is better. Each year has been better than the last. Well, you're probably right. It's just it don't seem like it to me, man. It just seems like the defense may be a little bit better than last year, but just not quite enough, right? Now, going over some of these bowl projections here, Texas Tech versus LSU in the Texas Bowl, Indiana versus Missouri. What about Indiana? Why wouldn't Indiana be in over the second best Big 12 school? In my opinion, Indiana should be in there over either Iowa State or BYU, in my opinion. Louisville playing Arizona State, the Sun Bowl, Iowa versus Ole Miss in the ReliaQuest Bowl in Tampa, Florida. Illinois versus Arkansas in the Music City Bowl. Army versus Texas State in the Independence Bowl. I might go to that game, by the way. Had some people from the Independence Bowl contact me because they used to go to a lot of their bowl games back in the day because Alabama used to suck. We went to like 3 Independence Bowls, and I went to all 3 of them. So you can't say I'm a bandwagon fan. I went to every single Independence Bowl that Alabama was involved in. Alamo Bowl, Kansas State, Washington State, Georgia Tech versus Memphis in the Military Bowl. Notre Dame versus TCU in the Pop-Tart Bowl. They got some stupid-ass names, man. Don't name your bowl Pop-Tart Bowl, man. Just put it on the field. Say it's the Outback Bowl or the Disneyland Bowl at Pop-Tart Field or some shit, man. On down here, Syracuse versus Minnesota in New York in the Pinstripe Bowl. Vanderbilt versus Colorado in the Las Vegas Bowl. Old con time. Deion Sanders might get a chance to lose to Vandy before he gets the hell out of town. Pittsburgh versus Oregon State in the Holiday Bowl. By the way, Pittsburgh is undefeated. And I think Pittsburgh plays SMU this week. Big game for the ACC. West Virginia versus Tulane for Appalachia Africa Twin in there. West Virginia is projected to go to the Liberty Bowl to play Tulane. Going on down through here to see any interesting matchups in the Detroit Bowl. We have an interstate matchup between Michigan State and Eastern Michigan. The Rake Bowl in Phoenix, Arizona has Baylor and Nebraska for Larry Trawicki, if he's in there. Going on down, nothing really that interesting. Maybe the Camellia Bowl in Montgomery, Alabama has Toledo and Wisconsin. But that right now is the bowl projections by CBS. They have Tennessee not making it. That surprised me. That really surprised me. I figured that Tennessee would get in over Alabama, considering they beat Alabama, right? But I guess they're saying that Tennessee is going to catch 3 losses total, and that's going to keep them out of it. Appalachia Africa Twin with a $2 donation. West Virginia ain't making no bowl game this year. Well, might be right. Now back to the Oklahoma people for a second. If for some reason Brent Venables gets fired this year, it's going to be my luck. And Alabama's good at doing this. They're good at saving people's jobs and making people. Alabama made Johnny Manziel. I don't care what anybody says. We made Johnny Manziel. We made him. And then he just shit the bed after that. We made him the Heisman Trophy winner with his little ass clown juggling, throwing into the end zone kind of deal. But Alabama could save Brent Venables' job. If Alabama goes into Norman and loses to Oklahoma, I think that could save Brent Venables' job. If Brent Venables can get a signature win over somebody at the end of this year, if he can upset LSU or Alabama, I think that will keep him around for at least another year for those that want him fired. And the way Alabama's playing, I can't look at that Missouri game. That's very misleading. Oklahoma could sneak up on Alabama. They could have their legs on them by then. Jackson Arnold looked a little bit better in the first half of that game. And that last drive there towards the end of the second quarter, he looked like he's getting his feet under him a little bit. They may be a lot better team by then. Of course, Alabama may be too. So I may be getting your hopes up for nothing. But I've seen Alabama do this before, where they go and a team is on the fringe of firing a coach, and then they beat Alabama and it saves the job. But if Oklahoma goes 5-7, if they don't upset anybody, if they go 5-7, how many of y'all want to see Brent Venables released? How many of y'all want to see Brent Venables fired if he goes 5-7? And if he goes 5-7, who is your leading candidate to replace him? I would really like to know that. I'm very interested to know who y'all have in mind, because I know Oklahoma has a history of going and hiring assistants to come in and be their first head coaching gig, all the way back to Barry Switzer, Gary Gibbs, John Blake. Howard Schnellenberger was an outlier. Bob Stoops, Lincoln Riley, Brent Venables, all assistants before first-time head coaching is at Oklahoma. Oklahoma's a blue blood. I don't know what your money looks like, but I think that going after an assistant, again, I think you need to deviate from that this time. I think Oklahoma needs to go out and go after a proven head coach that they can get within reason. A lot of y'all probably going to be calling Josh Heupel. I'm going to be honest with y'all, man. I'm not sold on Josh Heupel. Yes, he's beaten Alabama 2 out of the last 3 years, but that's just one game. He beat Alabama that 1 year, and he didn't do shit with it, man. Just like LSU, they beat Alabama that 1 year, and they didn't do anything with it. They lost the SEC title game and didn't get in the playoffs. So who is Oklahoma going to go after? Who's West Virginia going to go after? Appalachia Africa Twin? Who is West Virginia going to go after? Since we got all these coaches, and hell, Alabama, they talking about letting go of Kalen DeBoer after 1 year. Who y'all going to get, man? Tell me who y'all going to get, man. I'm curious from all y'all fan bases out there that want to fire your coach right now. Give me at least 2 or 3 candidates to replace him. Marshall Jenkins says, I appreciate you giving us an outlet to chat about our favorite sports. Salute. That's what it's all about, man. It's all about the common Joe and the common Southern. No, even more so than all the media talking heads, man. Because actually, we all know more than they do. The only way those media talking heads know anything usually, there may be a few give or take there that are versed in college football history. But for the most part, they get fed shit on a teleprompter or whatever, man. And they don't know it. They don't know that stuff beforehand. They just read it out. They're like a bunch of parrots, man. They just they're not as edgy as someone like me. They're not going to talk outside the box. They're just going to do exactly what a parrot does, and that's parrot stuff. Yo, blah, 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 says Steve Sleaze. Brent Venables' job's not in jeopardy. He's good at least 2 more years. Well, I think that maybe instead of Steve Leaves, maybe you should be Steve Leaves, because you might as well leave, man. Because you're not gonna pony up, man. You're not gonna come in here and debate me face to face like a man. You're gonna sit there behind your little keyboard and talk about how you're gonna investigate somebody. You're gonna talk about how you know where I live, which I don't care if you know where I live or not, man. If you do know where I live and you show up at my house and knock on my door, what's gonna happen, man? I don't think anything's going to happen. I don't think you're going to, first of all, you ain't brave enough to do that. Second of all, if you did do that, you may be highly disappointed in the outcome. It may not end the way you think. You think you're going to get over on somebody, but you're not. More likely, you'd be facing a losing battle, man, just to help you out with your investigative skills to save you all the time. But, yeah, come on here live, man. Quit being scared. Quit talking that stupid shit about, I make too much money to come on here. I don't have the time to come on here. But you're in here typing spastic shit. What should we get? Y'all help me give Steve Lee's a nickname. I'm struggling to get a nickname for you, Steve, because your name is so vanilla. You got such a plain ass name, man. It's hard to come up with anything, man. It's probably your entire existence, man. You're just a plain nobody that just get on your little computer screen and think you're Billy Badass behind the keyboard. Y'all give Steve Lee's a nickname for me. Killer Breeze, somebody come up with something. Steve Retards, whatever. Steve Lee, Steve Retard, Steve Leotard, Steve Lee Retard, Steve Latard. How about that? Steve Latard. Yeah, man, you could be our French spastic, man. You could be like a French retard. That's a good one. Steve Latard. Healing is free. Doc Smith's Gene Palace says BV needs to change his philosophy on strength and conditioning. He is pushing them too hard to gain weight, and they're getting slower and more injured. He also needs a big-name offensive coordinator hire in 1 more year, says healing is free. It's a very good point, man. Alabama used to have a strength and conditioning coach here that used to scream all the time, Scott Cochran. Everybody thought that shit was cute until players started getting injured. So Scott Cochran was sort of encouraged to leave, and he went on to Georgia, and then he had a meltdown and had a mental issue and a mental thing where he had to take off from coaching, and now I think he's back in coaching somewhere, but he was doing the same thing that you're talking about, healing is free. There's nothing wrong with working these guys out hard. But if you overwork them out, then they're more apt for their muscles to be a little too sore and break down out there on the field and possibly get injured, like I think you're alluding to, healing is free. Appalachia Africa 20 with another great $5 donation. Appreciate you, brother. Says Rich Rodriguez, Jimbo Fisher, and if enough money is available, I say buy out Matt Rule's contract at Nebraska. Well, Nebraska's a blue blood, man. Now they do, people think of the state of Nebraska now as this far outreaching outpost that nobody wants to live in. Matt Rule, I think, is a little reaching. If y'all could get Matt Rule, by all means, go for it. But I don't think y'all can get Matt. But I talked to Kuz about this. Jimbo Fisher, yeah, he didn't. It wasn't a good look for him at Texas A&M and how he handled some things there. But he did win a national title, following a legend at Florida State. And Bobby Bowden didn't leave that program in great shape. Bobby Bowden's last year there, he was 6-6 or 6-7, and Jimbo Fisher coming there, I think within 2 or 3 years, won a national championship off of a 6-6 team. They inherited. He did have rapist Winston for that 1 year. That after rapist Winston left, it sort of went downhill. But he has won a national championship, and he's from West Virginia. He never really felt like he really fit in Texas A&M's cult down there. Cult, well, my bad. I didn't mean to call y'all cult. The Aggies get mad when I do that. I'm sorry. I'm really not, but I'm sorry that, if y'all don't like it, but I'm not really sorry for saying it. But anyway, Texas A&M, their culture, I hate that word, their culture down there didn't really fit Jimbo Fisher. I think Jimbo Fisher would be reinvigorated if he were to get a head coaching job at West Virginia because it's his home state. He's already made enough money, so you ain't got to worry about him being bought out or someone coming in trying to steal him away from West Virginia because he's already made enough money where he can just go somewhere where he's not feeling as much pressure and feels a little more at home. And I think Jimbo Fisher would come back reinvigorated. I think he would be a great hire for West Virginia, and I think y'all should do that. Rich Rodriguez coming back as well wouldn't be a bad idea. Rich Rodriguez wasn't really a bad coach. He just got involved in some shady shit and went to the wrong places. He was coming to Alabama until, Paul Feinbaum and his radio network started talking shit about his wife, and they weren't used to that kind of stuff. So he went to Michigan, which was a bad move because of Lloyd Carr. Lloyd Carr was like Phil Fulmer. He was sticking around, meddling in the background, and absolutely cost Rich Rodriguez that job, in my opinion. Then he went out to Arizona, done decent for a little while, ended up getting fired there, and now he's at Jacksonville State, if I'm not mistaken. He's actually doing decent at Jacksonville State. But when he was at West Virginia, he had West Virginia contending for a national title, not just a conference title, a national title. If not for a late season loss to Pitt, I think it was 13-9. Y'all may have had your quarterback injured in that game too. If not for a late season loss to Pitt, West Virginia would have played Ohio State in that title game instead of LSU because West Virginia would have only had West Virginia would have been undefeated. Because they took one loss to a bad Pitt team, it dropped them behind LSU. Even though West Virginia had one loss, LSU's resume looked better, and they had 2 losses. They put a 2-loss LSU team in the championship game. West Virginia wins that game. Maybe talking about some different history here. West Virginia might have finally got their first national championship in one of the 2 big money-making sports because Ohio State wasn't really that good. LSU becomes the first 2-loss champion since like the 1960s. That's y'all's history lesson for the day. I guess Steve done left. He didn't want us to give him a nickname. I'll give Steve a nickname so when he comes here next time, we can tell him what his nickname is. Healing is Free says, BV is working guys too hard. I already seen that. My bad. Drawed up the wrong one, didn't I? Yeah, you basically were saying the same thing, weren't you? Mid-pace running, there's a new philosophy that this is actually hardwired, slower movement and injuries. They need to feed the cats, says Healing is Free. Steve equals non-playable character, says the Bagman. That's a good one. Sam Tenery. More BS from the Fairweather Center fans. Well, I mean, there are some very there's some concerns out there that they should be able to be concerned about, Sam. If they lose out and go 5-7, that's a hard pill to swallow, Sam. I don't know. With all these injuries, though, the way he's had to deal with all these injuries, especially at one position, wide receiver position, I can sort of see what you're saying, Sam. I would probably give him one more season regardless. With there's one caveat to that, though. The only way I definitely fire Brent Venables this year is if he loses to Maine. If y'all lose to Maine, his ass is out of here. Fred Bagley says it's not over working the weight room, but it may be more the fact that they went one-on-ones all the time. Love you, Outlaw. Keep on trucking one day at a time. Boomer Sooner says healing is free. Daniel Looney says a hard pill, but not the end of the world. The next offensive coordinator hire has to hit, though. Yeah. Who y'all gonna hire? Who's the leading candidates? Who are y'all hearing out there? Like I said, I've heard Kel Gundy. I haven't really heard anything. Who do y'all got? Who y'all got? Give me one or two. Give me three if you can. Of offensive coordinator candidates for Oklahoma. Well, all right. Y'all got any more questions for me before I get up out of here? Just hit that little $1 million sign at the bottom, write your comment out, send it. It'll highlight and push it to the top where I can see it. I'll answer your question out before I get out of here. Any more questions from y'all? Yeah, you do, Daniel. You're the common Joe and the common side of the no, even more so than all the media talking heads. You don't have to make a certain amount of money to have an opinion. Marshall Jenkins says there's some O-line problems as well. Third string center, unhealthy tackles, can't block anymore. Yeah, it's been horrendous. It's a little unfair to Brent, but like they say, injuries are part of the game, right? I know people get tired of hearing that shit because I get tired of hearing it too, because it's not really an excuse if half your team's out. Just like Missouri, half their team was out. So I don't take no huge delight in beating them 34-0. Fred Bagley says, I'm a huge center fan. I have my opinion, but I don't presume to know more than the guys in the Switcher Center, so I'll leave that to them. I'm just a diehard fan. Yeah, but there's no harm in giving a few candidates, man. Can y'all not just give me a few candidates, like two or three, outside of Kel Gundy? Is there anybody else that y'all can think of off the top of your head that would be a good offensive coordinator hire at Oklahoma? Because from what y'all are saying, this hire by Brent Venables absolutely has an impact on whether he's going to be the head coach here or not after next season, maybe, after 2025. All right. Yeah, Scott Frost would be a good one. Scott Frost, that would be a good one. Yeah, I like Scott Frost. All right. Like, share, comment, and subscribe to this channel after it goes to this live stream will go to a podcast after the show. If you want to, on there, on the actual, when it turns into a podcast, there'll be a $1 million sign there in the little heart. You can make a donation to the program like that, or you can join the Outlaw Posse like Fred Bagley and others and Marshall Jenkins, who have their badge and deputized. Being the Outlaw Posse, get a random 4 horseman shout out as well as possibly the comment of the day. $2.99 a month, 75 cents a week. KMCA to all the other teams. Class is now officially dismissed.